Afternoon and welcome to today's Mavs EDGE Internship Spotlight. I'm Julie Moy, Internship Coordinator with UTA's Career Development Center. I assist employers with internship program development, and I direct our Mavs EDGE Internship Program. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. We are so excited to welcome Wier Associates to today's EDGE Spotlight. They are a Mavs EDGE partner, and we are very grateful for their partnership. Today we have with us Carlo Silvestri, President and CEO, Priya Acharya, Senior Associate Project Manager, and Ryan Allen, a UTA Civil Engineering Intern. So we'll hear a lot of different perspectives and get a comprehensive look into what it's like to work at Wier Associates. But before we meet our panelists, students, you may begin sending in your questions to the panel at any time during the event using the question and answer section. We'll address your questions near the end of the presentation. So now let's get started by meeting our panelists. Carlo, would you like to start us off with introductions, please?
Sure. Well, my name is Carlo Silvestri. I am a professional engineer and a graduate of UTA. I am currently president of Wier Associates. And my role here is, as president, is to kind of oversee day-to-day operations, handle all the financial aspects of the company, H&R functions, employee issues, legal matters, all the fun stuff that a president does. Probably I still do maybe 20% of my business, my responsibility is project related, but 80% of it is probably overseeing the day-to-day business of Wier Associates.
Right, thank you, Carlo. Priya?
My name is Priya Acharya. I'm a licensed professional engineer also. I am a project manager and senior associate at Wier Associates. I am a graduate of UT Arlington, and I have been with Wier Associates for 18 years. Later on, I'll get more into my role and my growth in these last 18 years.
Great, and Ryan?
Hi, so my name is Ryan Allen. I am a civil engineering intern with Wier Associates. And I'm also a UTA student. I'm in my senior year, getting ready to graduate this May. I've been with Wier Associates for about 3 years now, working as an intern. I guess kind of my key responsibilities as an intern mostly entails just assisting my project manager and supervisor or team lead in preparing civil plans for submittal. That's most of my key responsibilities.
Great, thank you, Ryan. And how great to have fellow Mavs with us today. That's very exciting. Thank you for the introductions. Before we get started with questions from our students, I want to turn the session over to our guests for an overview of the company and its programs.
Sounds good. Well, I'll start us off with kind of giving everybody kind of a brief overview of Wier Associates. We are a civil engineering, land planning, surveying firm. We are located here in Arlington, Texas. We started, or John Wier, who actually also is a graduate of UTA, he started the company back in 1978. We actually just celebrated our 45-year anniversary. You can see on the screen there, we kind of start kind of a little progression. Essentially, John Wier started with his brother-in-law, Jim Britton, and that's where the name Wier Britton came from. And then several years after that, John bought out Jim Britton and created Wier Associates as one company and Britton and Crawford as another company. So they kind of split off, and we kind of have been Wier Associates ever since. So that kind of when we started. Like I said, we have a location here in Arlington. We've been in Arlington pretty much the whole time. We actually started in Fort Worth, but then quickly went to Arlington a couple years after they started. We also have a smaller office in Plano, Texas, because the Metroplex is so large. It's sometimes advantageous to have regionalized offices and so forth, but the Arlington office is kind of where we house most of our interns, especially the ones from UTA, because we're so close. And as we go through the presentation, you'll kind of hear a theme, starting with me and then Priya and then Ryan. But we kind of all started kind of the same way. So that's kind of where we're located. I mentioned that we're a civil engineering firm. Obviously, civil engineering is a large, broad area. For those who are getting a degree in civil engineering, you can go into structural, you can go into environmental, geotechnical, transportation, hydraulics, hydrology. There's just so many areas that civil engineering covers. And we kind of touch on all of those, but as a company, we only concentrate on land development, hydraulics, hydrology, and transportation aspects of civil engineering. And I'll get into some of the more specifics of those different areas, but that's kind of the area we are. We're primarily considered a land development company, and you'll kind of see that here in a little bit. Like I mentioned before, our three main areas of what we do is civil engineering, and kind of piggybacking off of that a little bit is the land planning aspects of it. We land plan, residential subdivisions and mixed use developments and all that. And then we have a land surveying component of our business. Going into more of the specifics, like I said, we're a land development firm. Probably 80% of our projects are in the land development side of things, and then maybe 25, it just depends on a year-to-year basis, 20, 25, 30% of our business is on the transportation side, which when we say that, it's more like public roadway design projects, water and sewer projects to support municipalities and things like that. So that's kind of how we're kind of broken up. But to get into more specifics of the different areas of land development, we do multifamily projects. We're doing a lot of that right now. You see all these apartment complexes popping up, especially around UTA. You see a lot of wrap buildings, we call them. So that's a big amount of what we're doing right now is apartments, multifamily, rental housing projects. And those can be, one story all the way up to multi-story type projects. And then we do also retail is another area. You see all the retail popping up everywhere, Frost Banks, Chick-fil-A's. Those are some of our clients. Any kind of retail, a shopping center, car washes, any kind, anything from an acre or even less to 50-acre multi-use mixed type retail projects. Then healthcare is another one. We do a lot of medical office buildings, hospitals, surgical centers. So anytime you see one of those, that's another thing we do. And let me dive into a little bit. When you're looking at these pictures, like on these healthcare projects here, like this hospital you're seeing in the upper left-hand corner, we're not designing the building or anything associated with the building. We're doing everything around it. We like to say we're kind of the support of everything. So a typical project, let's say, let's take one of these projects as an example. We're working with an architect. We're working with a structural engineer. We're working with a geotechnical engineer. We're working with the developer, and sometimes environmental engineers. All those different types of engineers are involved in the project. But our scope is typically the site work. So we're designing all the elevations, the grading, the water and sewer to the project, the storm drain, how the project drains. We handle a lot of the entitlements. So we do the platting, we subdivide the property, we go get zoning if it's needed. And then on the land surveying side, we do the topography and things like that. So we're kind of the base of everything. And then we work hand in hand with all the other design team members to come up with the project. And so that's kind of how this all works. And typically our clients are a developer, a business owner, a contractor, or a municipality on the municipal side. So those are our types of clients that we get, and that's who we work with. So while we only do certain aspects of it, we're working with and in collaboration with all the different other areas. Moving on to other types of projects. I know I focused on some of the other ones. We do industrial projects, trucking facilities, warehouses. We do offices, high-rise or low-rise offices. So anything that's developed, we kind of touch on. Institutional projects, fire stations, some schools. So that's kind of gives everybody hopefully a little overview of what we do here at Wier Associates, and the type of work we do. And sometimes students going into civil engineering, I know when I went to school, I didn't even know the land development side of things. A lot of students, when they go and say, I want to be a civil engineer, and this is how I started back 30 years ago, I thought of bridges and highways and big things like that. And I actually wanted to go structural because my dad was in the structural side of things, building big bridges. I fell in love with the land development side because every project is different. It's a fast pace. We start a project depending on the size of it, and it could be under construction within a year. Some of the larger projects, like big bridges and big projects, they can last years. And so these types of projects are fun. They're quick. There's a lot of moving targets that we have to deal with. And so that's how I kind of fell in love with it. So hopefully that gives you a good kind of overview of what we do at Wier Associates. And I'll just turn it over to the next person.
Yeah, thank you, Carlo. That was great. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience as an intern, because I've been an intern for about 3 years now. So I kind of mentioned briefly that my key responsibilities mostly entail just assisting my team lead and my project manager in creating plan sets. So what that kind of looks like is mostly that the engineers are going to be the ones doing all of the design tasks. And then it's the responsibility of the CAD technicians or the interns to get that design into plan sets, civil plan sets, which is basically the blueprint of our design, and then get them in a set of plans to submit to a city or jurisdiction. So a lot of what we do is all within Civil 3D. I mean, you're in Civil 3D all day, every day, working on production, or doing some kind of design task. We also have a survey department, like Carlo mentioned. So as an intern, I have gotten quite a bit of experience within our survey department. And it's been a really great opportunity to have survey a part of our company, because it gives you a full encompassing view of not just the engineering aspect, but also the legal aspect and ownerships and how the whole survey department works. So kind of the things that I've worked on for the survey department entails like easement documents, plats, construction staking, things of that nature. And I've also had a couple of leadership opportunities where I was kind of leading a couple of other interns to make sure, because there were a bunch of like easement documents that needed to get done. And so I was kind of organizing and facilitating, making sure everything was correct in that manner. And as I kind of progressed through my internship, and I kind of, I was able to understand what civil plans are, what goes on a paving plan, kind of understood I guess where things need to go. My project manager started to allow me to work on more design-oriented tasks, which is typically what an engineer would do. But under close supervision, they started slowly giving me these small design-oriented tasks. So a lot of the design that we do is usually utility design and then grading design. So for utility, we do water, sewer, and storm. And then grading design is just manipulating the surface to allow drainage to flow. So I was slowly starting to get really, really small little design tasks, learning how to use the software to model these things, and then slowly getting more and more larger tasks and things of that nature. And then next, I'm going to talk about kind of how I've balanced work and school throughout my time as an intern. School is always first priority, because if you don't pass your school, if you don't get through school, then you can't become an intern. So all of your project managers will understand this. School is first priority. And Wier Associates is very, very flexible with your schedule. So essentially, from my experience, I create my school schedule and then I tell them what my availability is for work. here. I basically just tell them, hey, I'm going to be here from, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., whatever your schedule is. And they're super, super flexible with that, and super appreciative for that as well. And it's really convenient because, like Carlo mentioned, Wier Associates is like 15 minutes away from UTA. So there's been several days that I have been where, I'll be at class and then, 30 minutes later, give myself time to go to lunch or whatever, and then I go to work, So it's really convenient. And I know there's tons of offices that are just really far away. So it's really nice to be kind of close as in that sense. And then as far as, summer internships versus spring and fall semester, um, summer, you can work as much or as little as you want. A lot of interns don't usually work, or they don't usually take classes in the summer. So if you want to work a full 40 hours, you can. And I think that's really when I've gotten a lot of my design experience, is because I've been here. I have the close supervision, I'm putting in the hours. They can give me that responsibility. And then for the spring and fall semesters, usually that's where students will take more classes and they'll cut their hours back a little bit. So for me, I would usually take about 3 to 4 classes and then try to work anywhere from like 15 to 25 hours as well. Trying to just balance that, making sure I have plenty of time to focus on school, but also that I'm getting as much experience as I can in the industry as well. Which that's a whole nother thing. In school, you learn a lot about just the very fundamental things, just the basics of these topics. They don't have enough time to go into the details of everything there is to know. But when you're working in the industry, it's usually a specialty of some kind. So we do land development, but you're getting that hands-on experience and you're learning from all these people. Like Priya's been here for 18 years, so she's got tons of experience under her belt that she's able to just pour into as far as that goes. And then whenever midterms and finals come up, they're super flexible when that comes around. Usually, I'll just send in a couple of weeks advance, say, hey, I've got an exam coming up. This will be my schedule this week. And it's really as simple as that. So Wier is super, super flexible as far as scheduling goes, and as far as making sure, you're able to work when you would like to. And then a little bit about company culture. So I kind of talked about this a little bit just a minute ago, but we really take pride in having an atmosphere of collaborative learning. Um, I was thinking about this morning. If you walk down the hallway of our office, which our office is just like a really long hallway, you're going to hear like 3 or 4 conversations. Like there's always people talking, asking questions, having design oriented stuff or collaboration. Like there is so much communication that goes on in our office. And I know that if I were to get up right now and go ask somebody a question, for the most part, they would drop what they're doing and try and explain it to me and try and help me. Like the ability to like the mentorship in this company is phenomenal. I love the people here. And we really take pride in that. We also have a really good work-life balance, and this kind of goes hand in hand with the work and school balance. Obviously we want you to work hard and do good when you're at work, but we also want you to enjoy life outside of work. We don't want people that are workaholics because, that's obviously leading down a bad path. So we take a lot of pride in that as well. And then just going back to the flexibility, I guess this kind of applies a little more for the full-time employees, but we exhibit a 4.5-day work week, which is really, really nice because you get a 2.5-day weekend. So essentially we work 9-hour days Monday through Thursday, and then we have a half day on Friday. So that leaves a 2.5-hour or a 2.5-day work week is really, really nice. It gives you a little extra time to spend with family or, take a weekend trip if you wanted to. So that's a little bit about what I have as far as the company goes. And then I'm going to hand it off to Priya.
Thanks, Ryan. That was an excellent description of our internship program. So as I mentioned earlier, I did start at Wier Associates as an intern during spring break of 2006. So I just celebrated my 18-year anniversary at Wier Associates, which is amazing to even think about that I have been at this company for so long. But I want to talk about just my growth in the last 18 years, how I feel Wier Associates has contributed to that, and what really I feel like I've contributed back. I first got my internship with Wier Associates actually through UT Arlington, through the Career Center in Netterman Hall. And I think at that time, Carol Coleman was managing the Career Center. And there was a flyer outside the building with Wier Associates contact info. And I called the number and I was put in touch actually with Carlo. And Carlo is the one who interviewed me. It's just a really fun story to think about that that's how I got my internship and ultimately my full-time position. I interned for 2 years while attending UTA and while also working at Wier Associates. I think Ryan did an excellent job of describing what it was like being an intern. The thing that helped me the most during my internship was taking advantage of those summer and winter breaks to maximize the number of hours I could work, because having that extended block of time, you really get to be more immersed in projects versus during the spring and fall semesters where you're really only here for a few hours and you may not get to see a complete design finished. So during that time, I've had the privilege of working on a variety of projects, many of the projects that were shown in earlier screens. Most of our staff get to work on so many different types of projects. It is not monotonous. We have such a wide variety of projects, wide variety of clients that we get to deal with. I would say looking back, there have been difficult projects that we've worked on, but really the most difficult projects I have worked on are the most memorable projects that I can think about. And really, it's because of the perseverance and making it past those projects that even though it was difficult, you remember at the end of it that we made it through. My responsibilities in my career, starting as an intern to now, I'm a senior associate and a project manager. I've gone through a wide gamut of responsibilities, all of which I've enjoyed. Starting as an intern, assisting the administrative team with various errands and tasks as they needed, making copies, delivering plans to cities and clients, addressing red line markups like Ryan described. And then as I moved more into being an EIT or a graduate engineer, an EIT is an engineer in training. During that time, my primary responsibility was designing entire commercial sites, which included the site grading, storm drain design, and site utility design. Most of my career has kind of been spent in that phase of really doing engineering. And now today, my responsibilities are more of managing a design team, managing deadlines, meeting project budgets, and being the primary point of contact for clients and stakeholders that are involved with the design and construction of a project. So kind of like Carlo mentioned earlier, we're constantly communicating with all these other design team members, communicating with clients and cities, the structural engineer, geotech engineer, architect, landscape architect, MEP engineers, which are mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineers, constantly corresponding with these people. And I like to say sometimes that civil engineering, at least in land development, is very similar to just social engineering because you're constantly communicating. And it's honestly like my favorite part of my job is getting to talk and correspond with all these people. Other responsibilities include attending client and design team meetings, presenting at various public hearings for cities. Some of those would be like Planning and Zoning Commission or City Council hearings. During my time, in addition to the work I've done at Wier Associates, I have also joined various professional organizations and volunteered to serve on those boards. Doing that has really helped build my confidence, and it grew my professional network outside of the company, and has been very beneficial for my career growth. My career has been very technically focused, and I have enjoyed it. And each step of my career has built on a foundation from a prior phase of my career. If I had to give any advice from my learnings in these last 18 years and things that I feel like have benefited me, it would be to attend career fairs. They can be intimidating. I understand it was intimidating for me too as a student, but it is beneficial to attend career fairs, see all these companies that are present, become familiar with those companies, ask questions at each of those booths. Do not be ashamed that you don't have prior work experience. Most of the time, the employers there are expecting that you don't have experience. Research the company ahead of time. Just know a little bit about the company, have some questions ready. It helps out, especially if you make it into the interview. Know something about the company so that when you do sit in for that interview, there is a fruitful conversation that occurs. Specifically for civil engineers, understand the various disciplines of civil engineering and at least have an opinion on what path you want to pursue. Like Carlo said, even for me, I didn't know land development existed until I got this internship. I thought I wanted to be a geotechnical engineer, and I got a land development internship and I absolutely loved it. I love that I get to deal with so many different facets of civil engineering. So at least have an opinion. It may change, but have an idea of what you think you want to do. One thing that we recognize at career fairs, when you approach the booth, like whoever you may be speaking to, be proactive and shake hands, and introduce yourself. That goes a long way for that initial introduction. It really is the first thing we recognize about you is you are being proactive to introduce yourself to us. As a student, attend professional meetings. So in engineering, we have ASCE and TSPE, which are specific for engineers. And I believe UTA has chapters of those or similar organizations, but even the professional chapters have student memberships, and either they're free or discounted. It is intimidating to go to those professional meetings, but it is a perfect opportunity for people to see you and for you to get introduced into the industry so that when it's time for you to look for that full-time position, people already know you. One big thing, looking back, don't burn bridges with anybody you went to college with. A lot of the people that I graduated with are now city engineers. They are my reviewers. Some of them may be my clients. And it matters that you had a good relationship with them back in college because they will keep coming back throughout your career. For engineers, take your fundamentals of engineering exam while you're in school, if possible, or as soon as you can upon graduation. And I guess on a more personal note, and this advice may be more appropriate when you're, a few years into your full-time career, you want to find an employer that cares about your emotional well-being and specifically your personal growth. We are very focused on our professional growth, but you also want to know that your employer cares about your personal growth and your emotional health. It is very important that when you come to work, you know that yes, you are there to work, but the people there want you to be there. You are doing the job you're supposed to do, and you are working in a collaborative team, just like Ryan said. We have commitments outside of work. I have 2 small kids, and it's important that you set your priorities and your expectations for yourself so that you can thrive in your workplace. That's a little bit about me. I will turn it over to Carlo.
Yeah, and both Priya and Ryan did an amazing job kind of explaining things. So my path is not much different, but a lot spread out. So as I mentioned before, I am a UTA grad, and I actually grew up here in Arlington. I was born in Florida, but my parents quickly moved here to Arlington, and I always say when I left my house that I lived in my whole life when I moved in with my wife. So, but I went to Lamar High School here in Arlington, graduated from Lamar in 1991, and then enrolled at UTA and graduated from UTA in 1996. But during that period when I was at UTA, just not much different than Priya, we didn't have internet back then. I'm dating myself a little bit. I'm 50, but up in the civil engineering floor, there was a bulletin board, and there was a little flyer with little tags on it. And we went up there, and I pulled the tag because Wier Associates was hiring, and went up there and called, and I actually interviewed, like Priya said, she interviewed with me. I interviewed with John Wier, and in 1993, and he asked me a bunch of questions like, do you know what you want to do? And I said, well, I want to be a civil engineer. I didn't know about all the aspects of what we did. And he said, do you know what land development is? I said, no. And kind of piggybacking off Priya, you kind of want to know those kind of things. Do you know how to do this? And do you want to know how to do that? And I said, no. And anyway, he hired me. So he hired me, and so I was an intern for 3 years, not too different from Ryan and Priya. And so here, I'll kind of change gears here a little bit. So kind of expand on what Ryan was saying, our goal here at Wier Associates with our interns is we want to get you prepared so that when you graduate, you can just take off your intern hat and you can put on your graduate engineer hat. So there's a progression that occurs, and so that's why we feel so important about internships. And that is, there's a lot of training that goes on and just allows us to kind of mold the student into an engineer. And so that when they graduate, there's no downtime, there's no training. They just come walk in and they can start, doing what they were probably doing before, but just to the next level. So, internships are extremely important. We've been doing these from the very beginning, and we hire a lot of interns, probably more than we need sometimes, but it's just part of what we do and what we like to do. And it's part of our growth model and things like that. But anyway, going back on me. So in 1996, I started here as an intern. And back then, interns didn't, we were kind of gophers. We kind of did whatever we were asked to do, so if they needed to change a light bulb, I would change a light bulb. If they needed me to go, make a delivery, I would make a delivery, submittals. And back then we didn't have big Xerox printers. So when we were ready to print plans, which Ryan mentioned blueprints, back then it was really a blueprint. And so we had these we had a whole room. It was called an ammonia blueprint machine. And I would sit in there all day long, printing, making copies. And so it essentially used ammonia to create these blueprints. And so that's another big task that I did as an intern. And then as I went on, I was given tasks, I was given drafting tasks, and then I was given design tasks and things like that. But the most valuable thing that I don't know if Ryan or Priya really touched on is just being around a business environment and understanding, what happens in a typical business, from running copiers to filing to understanding all those mechanics. Because believe it or not, we get people who don't know how to use a copier. And, so I'd rather teach them as an intern than when they're we're paying them high dollars as an engineer on how to use a copier. So it's extremely valuable, and it's helped myself and then many others below, me and my colleagues as they went through their progression. But so anyway, so in '96, when I graduated, John Wier, brought me in. There was no formality at the time. He brought me in. Hey, we like you. Okay. So I said, okay, well, great. I like y'all too. So he said, okay, we'd like to hire you, and I'll give you X dollars. And I said, okay. I mean, it was that easy. And then the next day I was, once I graduated, I was an engineer and so forth. And then, as a graduate engineer, you dive into the projects. You're really designing on a day-to-day basis. You're in, at the time, you were in AutoCAD. Now it's Civil 3D almost daily. So those are very, very, very important tools in what we do. As Ryan mentioned, you are in Civil 3D all day long. Obviously, as you go up, like Priya, she's not in it all day long, and myself, of course, but it is extremely important. And if you have the opportunity to learn that, do it. That's another big aspect of bringing in interns, is we want to teach them Civil 3D, because there is a learning curve. It's and so forth. So I came in '96. I worked for the 4 to 5 years needed. Back then, I had to sit for the PE. I passed the PE. I got my license, and then kind of worked my way up. And then, I became a team leader. I was actually one of the first. We have a team leader position, which is kind of a below a project manager. It's kind of a project manager in training. We give you a little team. We kind of start giving you responsibilities over people, over certain tasks, maybe a project, or maybe a big portion of a project. But when John created that team leader level, I was part of that first group that became a team leader. And then as I went up, I became an associate, and then in 2004, I became a principal. And a principal in a firm like us is you're kind of over project managers, you're kind of over projects, you're responsible for getting work, bringing in revenue, things like that. And so I became a principal in 2004, and then in 2014, I was fortunate enough to become president. John decided to step down as president at that time, and I was given that opportunity, and I took it. So, and ever since, I've been president. So I've evolved from changing light bulbs and making deliveries to now managing the day-to-day business of the firm. Obviously, I have a great team under me. I can't do what I do without everybody else. So, and then, like, preparing for this, I have to lean on Priya. Hey, how do I do this on this? So I don't know everything. But I feel like I have a good team under me that we can all work together to get, Wier Associates down the right path and keep us successful. So, a couple of things I wanted to touch on is what I would recommend, and Priya and Ryan did a great job of kind of explaining, what we look in, for our interns. I want y'all to be sponges. Y'all come in and just observe. This is not a competition, and we try to do the opposite. We don't try not to create a competitive nature, of things. Just learn and observe and absorb everything you can, because there's so much that goes on, and some of it may seem, very basic, like I mentioned, the copier, but those are things that you're going to have to understand how to do. And you just learn so much from it. And it's so important for your career. And, what Priya said about getting involved, the other biggest issue that we see, not issue, but, us as engineers, we're very introverted people. We're very quiet. And so we get a lot of interns, and then even as a graduate engineer, you're scared to death to make those phone calls and talk in front of a client and how to respond to questions that are directed to you right away. And so those organizations, like Priya mentioned, getting involved, those all help you kind of relax, help you kind of be able to communicate. Communication is key in what we do. You can go work for Texas Department of Transportation or a big company like that, or a big public company, and you can sit on a design of a major highway for years. But what we do is fast paced, and you're dealing with a lot of different people. You're dealing with cities, and you're dealing with clients, and you're dealing with different design professionals and so forth. And so you're having to communicate very quickly and very precisely to make sure, you know, everybody's going in the right path. So communication is very, very key in what we do on a day-to-day basis. So that's kind of, you know, again, my path is, you know, long, drawn out, but it gives inspiration to anybody who comes in. You can go from, and I don't have an accounting degree or a finance degree or MBA. So I have a bachelor's of civil engineering, and what I've learned is just based on what has been mentored to me and what I've learned on my own. And that's the path I took. I wanted to be in the business side of the firm. That may not be where Priya wants to be. That may not be where Ryan wants to be, but those avenues are available. And we try to be as flexible as possible with all our staff, from the interns to you know, people who've been here 10, 15 years. If they have a desire to go a certain direction, we try not to hold them back. We try to support them and try to give them the opportunity and the you know, to go those directions. And so, because there's project managers who love to manage projects, and there's people who they don't want to do that. All they want to do is design. They want to sit there and design all day long, and we need both. And so there's opportunities for both. So that is a little bit about me. I believe, unless,
Well, that's
yeah,
fantastic information, and I love that you've shared your experiences. You have a scan code for them, I see.
yes, looks like it. We do. We have one, and obviously we're always looking for new people. And so on the screen, you can find our website, and you can email us at hr@wierassociates.com. And, you know, we're always looking for good interns, especially from UTA. You know, we're all from UTA, but while we do hire interns from other schools, the year-round aspect of working it gives you an advantage. So, you know, like they mentioned before, being able to see projects from the beginning to the end is so much more valuable. While you do learn a lot during the summers because you're here consistently, being here year round does help kind of see it all kind of come together.
That's awesome. And just talking quickly about your internship program, I had a student raise their hand, but I don't see it in the chat. So if that student wants to just type the question into the chat, we're happy to answer it for you. But my question is, how many interns do you hire a year? From what I recall in our previous discussions together, you have a rolling recruitment period. Is that correct? And what year should they start trying to apply in their undergraduate degree program?
Yeah, I mean, we'll hire. So I didn't touch on this earlier. So we're about 45. We're 45 employees. So we're not a huge company. We're considered that mid-size. So typically we like to have, I don't know, every 3 to 6 interns on staff. And so obviously summers is a bigger one, because not only do we have our UTA interns that come in year round, we do have some that come in from A&M and from, you know, other parts of UT or wherever. So so that's kind of what we'd like to have. We're always looking for good UTA interns because of the aspect, because they're close, and we can kind of keep them here year round if that works for them. And so we will hire freshmen. I mean, we really will. And so if they know they want to be a civil engineer and they have those qualities that we kind of see, we will hire freshmen. And actually our preference is to hire, you know, interns earlier in their college career than later. Sometimes it doesn't do us a lot of good to hire a senior, because it doesn't give us a lot of opportunity to really see them and to really mold them. And no offense, we're not to be selfish, but we are hiring them for the sole purpose of hoping that we hire them when they graduate. So we want to have time to mold them from as early as possible. So freshmen and sophomores, juniors are great. We will hire seniors as well, but I'm just saying that that's our preference. Just it gives us time to develop them.
Well, and it sounds like there's such great mentorship and supervision. Ryan really touched upon that. This question really is for anyone that wants to answer on our panel, but how did starting, you know, kind of at the bottom, changing light bulbs, running copies, just doing all of those things, how does that make you a better leader, a better engineer, better at what you do, seeing all the aspects of the business?
Well, I mean, from my perspective, nothing is beneath. I always think nothing should be beneath you, you know. And I'll go out there and move stuff if I have to. I'll go out there and, you know, that's my philosophy. You know, I'll do anything necessary to do what we need to do. And so, you know, if Priya comes and calls me and says, "Hey, I need help doing this," I'm going to go down there and help her. You know, I think that's the type of person we want. We don't want people who come in and just say, "No, I don't want to do that. I'm here to design. I'm an intern. I'm a civil engineer. I want to design all day long." And that's not reality in my mind. So, we want people who are open to doing it. Now, our internship kind of program has evolved. You know, back when I started, we did a lot of, we were more like gophers, or kind of, there's a lot of admin part of it. We really try to not have them do as much admin work because of the fact that we know what they want, that we know what they expect. But the reality of it is there's always going to be filing, there's always going to be deliveries, there's always going to be stuff like that. And so we want somebody who's open to those kind of situations. You got to start at the bottom, in other words.
Yeah, exactly. And Ryan, you really talked a lot about the mentorship. How was that relationship? How did it help you in your graduate, or your program, your studies? How did they work hand in hand together?
So I actually started my internship when I was in my sophomore year, and a lot of the things that I was learning in my internship, I hadn't taken classes for yet. So like water resources or fluid mechanics. I learned all of that stuff here at work. My project manager, or my team lead, she sat down with me, showed me all of these formulas, showed me how to work through them. Like, time while she was working, she set aside this time to show me how to do a lot of these things. So then when I was, in those classes, I already had the upper hand, and, I excelled in those classes because, my team lead was able to sit down and teach me through a lot of these things. But I mean, there's time and time again where, if you, like I said earlier in the presentation, if I have a question, I can go ask anybody and they'll be willing to sit down and try and explain it to me. Um, our company does a really, really good job of making sure um, to continue education, to continue to develop each other.
That's fantastic. It sounds like a family, like it has such a great culture, and a culture of learning and helping each other, and respect for each other. And I know, Carlo, you hit upon this. What you're looking for in an intern is someone who communicates, who wants to learn. Are there other qualities if someone wants to set themselves apart? They've they've applied for a position, they get the interview. What qualities are you looking for?
I mean, definitely I want somebody who kind of understands what they want. We get interns in here, and believe it or not, they don't. And it's kind of, I'm describing myself a little bit. Back in the day, I've evolved a lot, and Priya's evolved a lot, but we'll get people come in and they don't know what civil engineering is, or believe it or not, or they don't know what we do. And so they'll come in and ask, "Oh, I'm interested in doing geotechnical engineering." Well, we don't really do that. So a little bit of homework in today's environment where everything is online and you can find it. We're expecting a little bit more, I think, for the applicants to really know what they want. And I get it. Sometimes they don't, especially as a sophomore or even a freshman. And we understand that, and we take that into consideration when we're interviewing them. So, but it's amazing what sometimes they don't even know who they're interviewing with. They'll come in and we're very clear on who you're interviewing with. So, just be prepared. Understand who you're interviewing with. If that's Wier Associates, if that's another firm, just understand what they do. I think if you know that, it sets an impression right away that this person did their homework. It's a couple simple things, and then, like I said, just somebody who's outgoing. I know sometimes that's a personality trait that some people don't have. If they're outgoing, if they're active and involved in organizations, you can be a member of ASCE. But if you're active in it, you're on the steel bridge competition team, you're on the president or vice president, you start to learn how to communicate and things like that. Those are all positive things. And if you're a junior or senior, if you've had prior internships, sometimes we'll get students come in as a senior and they're saying, "Oh, wow, I need to have an internship so I can improve it's too late at that point." And I understand that college is important. We're very flexible with our interns. If they need off, like Ryan said, I get that 100%. But sometimes we are looking for people who kind of don't wait till the last minute and say, "Oh, now I need my internship." So
yeah, absolutely. And it's great that you hire so early on. And I tell students a lot when they come to the Career Center, don't wait till senior year. So
yeah, exactly. Sometimes it's too late.
It is. And Priya, you really talked a lot. I'm curious about the organizations. As a student, how do you find out about those opportunities? Are there other suggestions you could make to students on how to network so that they can build their resume and their connections?
Yeah, definitely speak to your professors. I'm pretty sure your professors will know what appropriate organizations there are for your interests or what is most applicable for your degree. We were fortunate when I was in school, and I think it still exists, that ASCE had a student chapter. And through that student chapter, many professionals would come to the UTA meeting. So I got to meet other professionals through those meetings. Wier and Associates actually would always be at those meetings. So I got to start seeing Wier and Associates at these meetings too before I actually interviewed with them. I think the best way, if you don't know how to find an organization, start with your professors. That's probably the best way.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And once they apply for a position with your company, what's the best way for them to reach out to you? Is it through LinkedIn? I know we've included your information in the chat. Would you recommend anything else?
I think reaching out through LinkedIn would be perfectly fine. I mean, we do have our email address here, hr@wierassociates.com. So once they apply, their resume is with us, whether Zach will be checking Handshake, or if their resume is emailed to us or any other way, we do keep those resumes on file. We may not respond immediately if we don't have an opening, but we do frequently look back on recent resumes we've received to see if there is still somebody that might be available or interested in coming to speak to us.
Okay, so if they're still interested, they've applied to maybe keep reaching out and express interest.
Yes.
Fantastic. It looks like we are almost out of time. Is there anything else that you would like to add or promote or tell students?
I don't think I have anything else. I mean, it's been great that we had three, I guess 2 alumni and 1 soon to be alumni be able to give this presentation. We're very excited to give back to UTA and thrilled that we have this opportunity.
Well, we are so thrilled to have had you here today. And, you know, besides getting such a comprehensive overview of the company and the culture, just you give great career advice to anyone in any field. You know, the networking, the not waiting till senior year to get an internship, being involved, being open to learning, communication, how important that is, and just learning to do just basic, those soft skills that sometimes students are lacking. So I just appreciate all the great advice you've given today. And it's been such a pleasure having you here. You'll find students links to more information in our comment sections. And we're going to post this employer spotlight on YouTube so you can view on the CDC LinkedIn spotlight page and the student teams channel. Thanks again, Carlo and Priya and Ryan. Ryan, congratulations on graduating soon.
Thank you.
We look forward to following your career, and very exciting time for you. And thank you again for joining us and for being a Mavs EDGE partner. And students who are tuning in, I hope you have a great rest of your spring semester.
Thank you.
All right, and go Mavs, right?
Yeah, go Mavs.
Go Mavs.
All right, take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.